Here we go. We're gonna be looking at the different talent trees for Holy Paladin and Paladin as well for the class that is. On the PTR, this is the PTR for 10.0.7, there's a bunch of changes, and we're gonna be looking through what the tree is gonna be looking like, as well as going over the changes as we have been noticing them, and we'll talk about everything that's meaningful, and that's probably gonna be a buff or a nerf based off of what we had before. So let's start with the spec tree. Let's build a tree as we would normally do, and we'll comment over what's gonna be different. So we're gonna be doing this for a Mythic Plus build, and then we're not gonna be looking at the rating build, but yeah, looking at it as if it was a Mythic Plus build. What would have been different for the spec tree? Well, you can notice that Divine Toll is not here. Divine Toll is still, or rather now it's over here, over here on the class tree. So what happens is that now we have Sanctified Wrath on this side of the tree. Therefore, since Divine Toll also comes with Divine Resonance, we now have a free talent point that we are not taking onto this side. So we are able to make a choice that we didn't have before. So if we're going to be picking up everything that we would normally pick up for Mythic Plus, we now have an extra point that we are able to spend elsewhere onto the Holy Spectre. So what would we do with this point for Mythic Plus? Hello there, by the way, Yoriku. What we could do is, or what I would personally do is most likely go ahead and pick Save by the Light. You could choose multiple things, for example, Veneration, could get a little bit more haste from Relentless Inquisitor, could go ahead and pick Light of the Martyr for some more reactive healing, could even talent onto some of these things for Aura Mastery, although those are not that useful as always with Aura Mastery, or rather these two with Aura Mastery on Mythic Plus. So the options are there. Being that we are playing Beacon of Virtue now, Save by the Light could potentially do quite a lot more healing than if we were only playing normal Beacon or the other one, Beacon of Faith. So definitely a good option to contemplate if you're going to be playing Beacon of Virtue. I think this would amount to quite a decent amount of HPS over the whole dungeon, if you are playing it right. Otherwise, there's also plenty of other options, as we already mentioned. All in all, the change to the spec tree for Holy Paladin has made it so that we still keep basically everything we already had for Mythic Plus, but we now also have an extra point that we are able to spend elsewhere, and we do not lose anything else. Now, let's move on to the actual class tree. Here's where most of the big things have happened. And let's start just by building the thing as normal. First of all, the talent that gives us longer duration of Divine Steed has been buffed. It's now 2 seconds instead of 1 second, so that makes it double the value. Good stuff for us. We get more horse, that's good. Now they also switched the position between improved cleanse and the talent point for repentance or blinding light, meaning that if we want to path to blinding light, we have either to mandatorily pick improved cleanse or to spend 2 points onto Fist of Justice. Fist of Justice is no longer on this side, therefore it's a lot less attractive because you kind of always want to be picking either Repentance or Blinding Light. It's just very, very handy. But spending 2 points onto Fist of Justice just doesn't cut it. It's a lot of points, and you'd rather just spend 1 onto Improved Cleanse and then pick this. Could maybe do something to somehow get away with picking Fist of Justice and I don't know, not really, because you kind of just only need 1 more point. So maybe you could get 1 point in there, but really you kind of just want to put 1 point onto Greater Judgment here so you can go down and then pick Rebuke. Now, Greater Judgment is quite interchangeable with Tarn Evil. This is the point that I would personally change with Tarn Evil if I needed Tarn Evil, because it doesn't do that much on its own, and you kind of need to go this way anyways to pick the kick, so that's that. Moving on with the things that are normal, not changing. Now, first change that's pretty big here is we have this new talent, Sanctified Plates, armor increased by 20%, stamina increased by 10%, and damage taken from AoE effects, or rather attacks, has been reduced by 10% as well. So this is a big ass addition to Paladin, a lot of survivability in this single talent. Definitely a must pick, a lot of armor, meaning a lot less physical damage. 10% reduced damage taken from AoE attacks, meaning simply 10% avoidance, that's pretty fucking good. And stamina increased by 10%, extremely huge for any form of content, included Mythic Plus, so that is a must. Now they also included one new talent, or rather in between the new ones, there's another one here. Light Forged Blessing, Shield of the Righteous will heal you and 5, or rather up to 4 nearby allies, so it's gonna heal the entire party for 2% of their maximum HP. This is huge. Every time you are gonna be Shield of the Righteous, not only you're gonna be doing some more damage, so you're also gonna be doing a little bit of healing, meaning you can keep on being offensive while also doing some healing. Talking about self-sustain, there is also this new talent that increases the range of your auto attacks and your Crusader Strike as well as your interrupt, but also makes it so that every time you Crusader Strike you heal yourself for 2% of your maximum HP. That is a lot more self-sustain. So you have self-sustain coming from this, you have more defensiveness coming from this, and now you also have self-sustain coming from that. So you're gonna be just constantly Crusader Striking as always, from afar, so you now have extra range, meaning you are pretty much a rogue almost, you have the increased range. Look at that. That is so good. That is awesome. Like, that's the range from our Crusader Strike, our kick, and our auto attacks now. And you're self-healing from that, and also self-healing from that. So we are getting a lot more self-survivability just in our base kit with this talent. That is awesome. Now, what about this talent? Now, this no longer increases Consecration's damage, now increases Judgment damage, meaning that it's a little bit of a nerf to the damage potential of this talent, but it now has a little bit of synergy with melee wings, so that could be something cool. If you want to buff your melee wings somehow, you could pick this talent. However, I don't think there is any spot for this talent to be picked. There's just too many good things to pick, so we kind of have to pass on that one. We'll see about that in a minute. Now, Divine Purpose still the same, Divine Toll still the same. Now, however, we have the choice between Divine Resonance or shorter cooldown on Divine Toll. We can now make Divine Toll a 45-second cooldown. I think this was already a thing back in Shadowlands, but now we have it on Dragonflight, so we get more of the same thing. Now, which one is better between Divine Resonance and the shorter cooldown of Divine Toll? Honestly, I'm not really sure. I do, however, think that the value of Divine Toll is mainly on the first initial burst, and therefore just having it more often is just better. So I would personally go with this, unless the overall value of Resonance somehow would be much better, and you wouldn't need the initial burst that much. Not really sure. I think shorter city would be much better. Now, they also changed the seals here. Seal of Clarity, or Alacrity rather, now not only gives you the haste, but also reduces the cooldown of Judgment, so that also plays into melee wings and also plays into this talent. Not really a big deal though, you wouldn't really want a Judgment that much, especially because Judgment of Light is still pretty bad, even though they changed it to that. It's not, no, it doesn't actually apply 25 stacks anymore. Now it applies only 5 stacks, and they all do a bigger amount of healing. However, the total amount of healing is the same one as before, and since the nerf to Judgment of Light has not really been the play, and it's still not going to be the play. Now, a big change to Seal of Might here. It's not just gonna give you the mastery, it's also gonna give you intellect. 4% intellect, that is. So this is pretty much going to now be a mandatory pick. That is a lot of intellect, and you're not gonna be passing on that. Trust me, that is way too good to ignore. A new talent here, they removed the other seal that gave you the random chance of only spending 2 holy power instead of 3. Now we have this, where whenever you're standing in Consecration, the damage from Shield of the Righteous or the healing from Word of Glory is going to be increased, well actually both, will be increased by 20%. That is a lot of increase on the healing of Word of Glory, and you're pretty much going to be standing on Consecration 24/7, so this is pretty much mandatory. A lot of free healing, and we're going to be using a lot of Word of Glory Mythic Plus, as well as Shield of the Righteous, so it's just more free healing. It's just looking like we're getting more intellect out of this, more healing out of that, more self-sustain. Now, let's move on to the good part, actually. Now, they have reworked of Dusk and Dawn. It's no longer something that you only get when you get to 5 holy power and then all the way to 0 holy power. Forget about that. Now you get Blessing of Dawn whenever you spend, or rather whenever you generate 3 holy power, whenever you cast 3 holy power generating abilities, which should include Crusader Strike and Holy Shock. However, right now on the PTR, Holy Shock is not working, it's not included, therefore it doesn't work with Divine Toll either, but you should think about it as if it did, and therefore you would be getting Blessing of Dawn every time you use either a bunch of Holy Shocks or a bunch of Crusader Strikes. This also stacks up, so you could get this buff stacked up to 2. You could have 2 of Blessing of Dawn. Now, Blessing of Dawn does a different thing as before. Now, what it does is that it increases the healing or the damage of the next Holy Power spending ability by 30%. So, think about it, you need 3 Holy Power for every single either Light of Dawn or Word of Glory, or also Shield of the Righteous. So basically every time you're gonna be using a Word of Glory or a Light of Dawn or a Shield of the Righteous, it's gonna be doing 30% increased healing or damage, unless, for example, you got the free Word of Glory or Light of Dawn from the Divine Purpose proc. In that case, you wouldn't be consuming a stack, but pretty much every time you're gonna be using those, it's gonna be buffed by 30%. That is a lot of extra healing we're getting from nothing, out of nowhere. Now, the previous buff that we have from Blessing of Dawn was also pretty strong, but this is much stronger, and we'd rather prefer this, to be honest. And now there's also a change to the Seal of Order. Now, you could pick Seal of Order and buff the effect of Blessing of Dawn by an extra 10%. Actually, I think the tooltip here is bugged. This should be 20% increased damage and healing, and together with Seal of Order, it should go all the way to 30%. I think it's bugged because I didn't change my talents. I already had this before. In any case, this should make it so that the blessing of the buff from Blessing of Dawn goes all the way to 30%. And if you pick Seal of Order, then the Blessing of Dusk, it's not only gonna give you the 5% reduced damage taken, which, by the way, you get Blessing of Dusk whenever you consume the Blessing of Dawn. You don't have to go to 0 Holy Power. That's a change. So if you do not pick Seal of Order, Blessing of Dusk is only going to be 5% reduced damage taking. If you pick Seal of Order, Blessing of Dusk will also include the increased armor and the increased cooldown reduction for the Holy Power generating abilities. But we now have another option, which is Fading Light. This is not going to change the way Blessing of Dawn works. However, it's gonna make it so that Blessing of Dusk also gives us the buff of Blessing of Dusk also causes the Holy Power generating abilities to apply an Absorb Shield whenever we are dealing damage with them or also healing, meaning that 20% of all the healing done by Holy Shock will come onto us as an Absorb Shield, and 20% of all the damage we do with Crusader Strike is going to also come to us as an Absorb Shield. This has a cap of 30% of our maximum HP, so you cannot get a maximum of 100% of your HP as a shield. That doesn't work. But this, right now, it's not working on the PTR, so we cannot test this. We don't know how easy or not it is to play around it. But anyways, it does sound quite good. Although, be reminded that this only works when you have Blessing of Dusk. So Blessing of Dusk doesn't last for that long, meaning that you will only be able to benefit from this after you have consumed the Holy Power generating ability. Let's go ahead and apply the changes, and you will see that the Blessing of Dusk, the duration of it, which actually don't really remember, but let's go ahead and generate some Holy Power. There we go, we got Blessing of Dawn. We consume that and we get Blessing of Dusk for 10 seconds. So you could pretty much keep that up for, I don't know, I don't want to say 100% of the time, but that's pretty easy to keep up, as you can see. It just got refreshed. That taking into account as well that right now Blessing of Dawn is bugged and it's not being generated when you generate it with Holy Shocks. So therefore, generating Blessing of Dawns is a lot harder, therefore generating the Blessing of Dusks is also a lot harder, but it should have a pretty meaningful uptime, so you could consider every Holy Shock and every Crusader Strike you do pretty much as applying an Absorb Shield to you. Over time, just applying a lot of Absorb Shields, which would add up as a lot of HPS. That's the theory that I'm seeing, but you are giving up on the 10% increased armor, as well as on the 10% cooldown reduction to your Holy Power generation abilities. I don't think that's too big of a deal. I think definitely Fading Light is looking like a very good talent right now. So, new stuff that I think is meaningful talking about is, for example, this Faith's Armor. Shield of the Righteous grants 20% bonus armor for 4.5 seconds. So basically for the entire duration of your Shield of the Righteous, you're also going to get a bunch of armor, and that bunch of armor is very, very meaningful. So I don't know if I have it bound in this setup. No, I don't have it bound. So let's look at the armor. Look at my armor here. I'm going to be Shield of a Righteousing, so I'm going to be getting, there you go, 29,000. I get 14.6k out of normal Shield of Righteous. That's nothing weird, that's just a normal amount. But if we now go ahead and drop combat first and talent into it without actually screwing up the entire setup, for example. So let's pick this. It says 20%, so you can see that's gonna be quite a massive amount of armor we are getting out of that. Now, how good is that? I'm not really sure, but you can see that when I use this now, I go all the way up to 37,000 because I am getting a lot more from just having the other talent too. So that is pretty juicy. Would you pass on that? Probably, yeah, because you're giving up the haste here for an extra 20% amount of armor. How often do you benefit from the armor? I mean, pretty often, honestly. You don't realize it maybe, but a lot of times you're probably gonna get hit by something and it's gonna be a physical amount of damage, therefore the armor is gonna be playing into it. But yeah, I don't know, it's something that unless you are really aware of when you are benefiting off of Shield or Righteous, I wouldn't be able to tell whether or not I would pick this over 2% haste plus the cooldown reduction onto Judgment. Personally, I don't think I would right now. Somebody else would have to correct me on that, honestly, because I don't really know how much do I benefit off of that damage reduction taken. But regardless, this is quite an interesting amount of the reduced damage taken. Definitely something to think about. Now, something else that I'm gonna mention is that they changed Seal of the Crusader in quite a meaningful way. They made it so that this doesn't now apply a debuff and increase the damage they take with the debuff. Now what it does is that whenever you auto-attack, it's going to cause the auto-attacks to also do some holy damage. So you can see there, I am auto-attacking, I'm also doing 1,000 or 2,000 if it crits holy damage. Therefore, if my normal melee damage is of like 3.6k, 3.7k, I am adding onto that pretty much a fourth of the damage I was already doing. So it's like a 25% increase of your melee damage pretty much. And it can also crit, but the crits are separate of the melee crit, so you can count the crit chance as even. Therefore, your melee damage is increased by about 25% with this talent if you put 2 points into it. Is it worth it? I don't personally think so, because it's just a little bit of melee damage. It doesn't really synergize with anything like melee wings. But definitely interesting, a lot more of an offensive option. I don't think they've changed anything to Shield's Paragon, that's still the same. So if you want to go ham and do a lot more damage, now Holy Paladin, as well as every other Paladin, has another option to do more damage. That's pretty cool. And I do honestly think that's about it. Everything else here is just a matter of the placement changes. They changed also this talent, they made it a lot more accessible. I don't think you are ever going to be picking this. There's way too many good things down here to ever pick this. These talents down here, they haven't been changed as far as I know. They are still garbage. Even Incandescence was garbage for Mythic Plus, to be fair. And Touch of Light has been garbage for a long ass time. So this is not something I'm considering whatsoever. And Improved Blessing of Protection, not really something you kind of need. Like, it's really niche if you were to need this in Mythic Plus. So not considering this either. Retribution Aura, despite the changes to it, making it so that whenever somebody takes 30% of their HP as a single hit, is gonna make the party do 5% more damage as well as healing for 10 seconds. This is really niche, really hard to get to actually pull off in Mythic Plus. If you were to actually consider using this, you would have to be switching between auras, which would mean that you need 2 GCDs to go back and forth. The damage you could potentially gain from this is definitely meaningful if you consider it to be group-wide, but it's only a 10-second buff and it's really cumbersome to have to do that yourself. You would lose on a lot of your own potential damage as well as just make your life a lot harder. I don't think this is something you're going to be picking as a Holy Paladin in Mythic Plus. Losing out of Fist of Justice sucks because a lot of just having more hotches is always good. There's many scenarios where you want to be hotching things in Mythic Plus. Potentially could work around it somehow, but not gonna lie, don't see this being picked too much. Maybe putting a single point into it somehow, but not really thinking like it's gonna happen. I mean, if you didn't need Improved Cleanse, you would, instead of picking Improved Cleanse, just put a single point into Fist of Justice. That's what I'm thinking that's gonna happen. But it could also, instead of doing that, just actually no, you couldn't do that because you would need to put 2 points if you want to be picking Blinding Light. So I just don't see there's any way of picking Fist of Justice as of right now. Golden Path still sucks, hasn't changed. Judgment of Light has been changed, but still sucks. And yeah, that's pretty much about it to the entire tree. Now, when thinking about Turn Evil, if you wanna be picking Turn Evil, the most the easiest option that I'm thinking would be to just give up Greater Judgment and just pick Turn Evil instead. Not losing too much into it, just a little bit of damage. So yeah, I think that would be the most obvious change. And looking like, to me, this just looks like pretty much the entirety of Holy Paladin has been buffed. As a spec, it's not changing the way it plays. It's pretty much going to remain the same in Mythic Plus. Doesn't seem like it's changing in raids too much either. I wouldn't think so. By the looks of it, the spec tree is pretty much the same. So that's pretty much guaranteeing that our gameplay is going to remain the same as well. But overall, looks like we're getting a lot more of self-sustain buffs in general. Just the big amount of buffs are coming into the self-sustain area here, with the healing done with the Shield of Righteous, with the Crusader Strike, with the more armor, with the option to more armor here, a lot more intellect coming from this, so that's just a straight up buff. The cooldown reduction for Jasmine, a little bit more damage if you put Jasmine often enough. Cooldown reduction onto Divine Toll, definitely a very good option for Mythic Plus. And then also the changes to of Dusk and Dawn, and the Blessing of Dawn and the Blessing of Dusk together with Fading Light. That to me seems like quite a juicy buff to our overall healing. And then also having Strength of Conviction, buffing our Word of Glory healing and our damage of Shield of the Righteous, because we're pretty much always going to be standing on Consecration. That is just a straight up 20% buff in my opinion. So all in all, these just look like a lot of pretty good buffs, which could make Holy Paladin into a much better pick onto Mythic Plus. Now, when it comes to damage, I don't think this is going to make our damage any better, which kind of sucks, because a lot of the value of Evoker is the fact that they are not only able to do a lot of AoE healing, but also just do a lot of damage. So probably gonna still suck besides, or rather behind Evokers, but we're getting buffed, so that means that Holy Paladins will probably be better for the next patch. Or rather 10.0.7, because this is probably gonna see some changes going into 10.1 anyways. But yeah, quite some buffs for Holy Paladins going into the late part of this Season 1. So there you go, that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.